All right, we are rolling. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are across the globe. Welcome back to Sip&Talk. I'm your host, the slightly adventurous and stunningly beautiful half of this duo.
And I am your mature, highly rational, and let's just say handsome co-host. How are you holding up today?
I'm doing great. But before we get into today's absolutely packed geopolitical agenda, I actually need to make a bit of a heartfelt confession to all our Sip&Talkers right off the bat.
Oh, boy. A confession already. All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm taking a deep breath here because I really owe you all an apology. Last time I got, well, a little carried away. I was completely obsessing over booking one of those luxury glass igloo suites to watch the auroras.
Right, the bucket list travel vibes.
Exactly. I was going on and on about the aesthetics and the peace and quiet. But my inbox absolutely blew up. I got messages from so many incredibly stressed out listeners who, they totally missed the recent stock market boom and their portfolios are just burning to the ground right now.
Yeah, it's been a brutal couple of weeks for a lot of people.
It really has. One listener literally wrote to me and said, "The only blue light I am seeing right now is the painful, blinding glare of my plummeting stock charts. I cannot even think about auroras." So, man, I am so sorry. I was completely blinded by my own travel fantasies, and I totally ignored the severe financial anxiety so many of you are feeling.
Well, I mean, what you were experiencing is just what behavioral economists would call adventurer's bias.
Adventurer's bias.
Yeah. You were looking at the world through the lens of this pristine, frozen landscape, while, our listeners are looking at the very brutal reality of their funding costs. But I do want to offer some cold comfort to everyone listening today.
Please do. We need it.
Our core thesis on this show has always been exactly this investment is the monetization of cognition.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. What exactly does the monetization of cognition look like in, everyday practice?
It means that the highest rewards come exclusively to those who enter the market during peak panic.
Right.
The people who caught the recent boom, they didn't just get lucky.
They took on a ton of risk.
Exactly. They bore massive psychological risks. They made calculated moves when the data was absolutely terrifying to look at. You simply cannot separate the reward from the risk. The financial markets are not a charity, and, well, there are no free lunches.
Right. You have to be willing to look at the fire.
You do. You have to remember that you, and only you, bear your own financial risks. You have to process the raw data, form a clear cognitive map of reality, and then have the actual stomach to act on it.
You are so right. Risk and reward are basically twins. And if you want the upside, you can't just look away when things get scary. So to make it up to everyone, I promise we are completely skipping the auroras today.
Glad to hear it.
We are going to look at something genuinely hot. Something that is directly shaping the very charts that everyone is stressing over. We're going to look at the highly volatile, constantly shifting geopolitical landscape of May 2026.
It is definitely glowing red right now.
It really is. But before we jump in, just a quick warm reminder to everyone listening. Our show takes absolutely no political sides.
Not at all.
We do not criticize or discriminate against any country, any group, or any people. We are strictly objective and impartial. We just want to give you the mechanisms behind the facts so you can think critically and independently.
Perfectly said. So, where are we starting today? Because like I said, the map is currently flashing red in several different time zones.
We're starting with the ultimate global risk. And honestly, it's a headline that almost made me drop my iced Americano this morning.
Oh.
The sudden, totally unexpected, quote-unquote, end to the U.S.-Iran conflict.
Yes, that headline.
I mean, on May 1st, 2026, Trump wrote a formal letter to Congress explicitly stating that hostilities with Iran are terminated, with a capital T. He cited a ceasefire brokered by Pakistan that apparently went into effect a few weeks ago, back on April 7.
And let me guess, you're buying this headline at face value.
Well, I mean, I was trying to figure out the strategy behind it. From an outsider's perspective, I enthusiastically looked at this and thought, wow, this is a classic surgical asset restructuring.
A restructuring? How so?
Think about it in, corporate raider terms. Or, a landlord legally evicting a tenant on a technicality rather than fighting this long, messy battle in court.
Okay, I'm following.
You bomb an opponent for 2 weeks, you systematically destroy their nuclear facilities, you cripple their oil exports, and then right before the buzzer sounds, you declare absolute victory, walk off the court, and just watch their economy crumble under its own weight. It feels like this incredibly aggressive, highly efficient negotiation tactic.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you right there.
Wait, I'm wrong.
I'm chuckling coldly over here at your optimism, but I highly recommend you keep your Hawaiian vacation shirt in the closet for now.
But the letter says terminated.
You're falling for the headline. There is a massive, and I mean massive, cognitive gap here between the political statement and the physical reality on the ground.
Wait, a cognitive gap. But it's an official letter to Congress. How is it not a termination of hostilities?
Because this isn't peace. This is a brilliant and honestly highly cynical legal maneuver.
Okay, lay it out for me.
Let's look at the actual calendar.
Yeah.
The conflict started on February 28, 2026. Now, the War Powers Act in the United States is designed as a check and balance. It strictly limits the president's ability to conduct military operations without explicit congressional approval to exactly 60 days.
Oh my gosh, wait. February 28 to May 1?
May 1 is exactly the 60-day mark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The letter declaring the conflict terminated isn't a peace treaty. It is a legal firewall. It is designed specifically to bypass a congressional vote and avoid violating the War Powers Act. What we are looking at is not peace. It is a frozen conflict.
I totally see your point about the legal loophole, but I have to push back a little here. Doesn't an active naval blockade functionally mean we are still at war? Like, if you are actively starving their ports, how does the conflict just magically freeze?
It doesn't.
Right. So what does this actually look like on the water?
On the water, it looks incredibly dangerous. The U.S. naval blockade against Iran is still in full effect. Trump even joked recently that the blockade makes the U.S. Navy look like pirates.
Like pirates. Wow.
Yeah, and Iran is not just sitting quietly and accepting this. They are actively using the Strait of Hormuz as their ultimate bargaining chip.
Which is a huge deal.
It's massive.
Yeah.
We are talking about a geographical choke point that handles roughly 20% of the entire globe's oil and gas trade.
And that choke point translates directly into the financial pain our listeners are feeling right now. The global ripple effects here are just staggering. I was looking at the World Bank predictions this morning, and they are projecting an almost 24% rise in global energy prices by late 2026.
Which is painful enough on its own.
Entirely due to this exact standoff.
Right. The energy numbers are bad. But the agricultural data is what should really keep people awake at night.
Oh, the fertilizer issue.
Exactly. Have you seen the joint report from the FAO and the analysts at RBC?
The Food and Agriculture Organization, right.
Yeah. They're highlighting a 31% spike in global fertilizer prices.
Wait, I need to understand the mechanism there. How does a naval blockade in the Middle East cause a 31% spike in fertilizer prices?
Because modern fertilizer production is heavily dependent on natural gas.
Oh, okay.
So when energy markets get strangled at the Strait of Hormuz, the cost to produce fertilizer just absolutely skyrockets.
And then the farmers pay the price.
Exactly. When fertilizer gets 30% more expensive, farmers use less of it. And when they use less, agricultural yields drop globally.
That is terrifying.
It is. That mechanism right there puts an estimated 360 million people at direct risk of hunger.
360 million. That's almost the population of the U.S.
Yep. Meanwhile, inside Iran, their domestic inflation has soared past 70%.
73%, to be exact. I mean, that is straight up regime destabilizing territory. But, to add a really dark human detail to this, just to prove that this shadow war is still absolutely raging beneath the surface.
Oh, it is.
Just yesterday, Iran executed 2 people they accused of being spies for Israel. So the large-scale bombing might have stopped on a technicality, but the proxy war is completely unrestrained.
Precisely. And if we look around the immediate region, that instability is spreading like a virus.
You mean Syria?
Yeah, in Syria, U.S. troops have just finished their withdrawal. They're literally handing over bases, which immediately creates this massive power vacuum. And the fear is that Iranian proxies are going to rush right in to fill it.
And as if the Middle East wasn't providing enough anxiety for one morning, there's also the nuclear safety aspect.
The NPT Review Conference.
Yes. The Non-Proliferation Treaty Conference is currently meeting, and they're debating a genuinely terrifying new risk integrating artificial intelligence into nuclear weapon decision-making chains.
Which is exactly what happens when technological capability vastly outpaces diplomatic frameworks.
Because AI doesn't hesitate.
Right. If you compress the decision time from minutes to milliseconds, you completely remove the human hesitation that literally saved the world multiple times during the Cold War.
It's chilling.
It really is. But let's connect all of this to the bigger picture. When you have the United States heavily tied up managing this complex, frozen naval conflict in the Middle East, The geopolitical heat doesn't just vanish.
It goes somewhere else.
Exactly. A massive security vacuum opens up on the other side of the world.
Right, because the U.S. is looking the other way. The heat is transferring directly over to the Asia-Pacific region. I mean, Japan realizes that right now nobody is coming to save them, so they are taking matters entirely into their own hands.
The Asia-Pacific chessboard is undergoing a fundamental realignment right now. We really have to talk about what is happening in Tokyo.
May 1 was just a historic day for them. Sana Takachi's government officially modified the 3 principles on transfer of defense equipment.
Which is a huge deal.
It is.
Right.
For our listeners who don't track Japanese constitutional law, they have completely lifted their long-standing post-war ban on lethal weapon export.
They aren't just changing the rules on paper. They are backing that monumental policy shift with hard capital.
How much capital are we talking?
Japan's 2026 defense budget has just smashed through the 9 trillion yen mark.
9 trillion.
We are talking nearly $57.5 billion. And this marks the 14th consecutive year of defense budget growth. They aren't just buying off-the-shelf equipment anymore either.
No, they're building it.
Yeah, they're actively co-developing next-generation fighter jets with the UK and Italy.
You know, I actually have an analogy for this that might help listeners visualize what's happening.
Okay, let's hear the lifestyle analogy.
Hey, it works. Think of Japan historically as this legacy tech giant, like a massive corporation that has been quietly doing brilliant, top-tier internal R&D for decades, but strictly keeping all their best innovations in-house.
Right, very insular.
Exactly. But now, suddenly, the CEO kicks down the door and says, we are pivoting. We are becoming a global sales department. They are taking their highly advanced lethal technology to the open market. But here's the thing I don't quite get.
What's that?
Doesn't this massive rearmament and this huge export pivot make Taiwan and China incredibly nervous?
It makes everyone nervous. But most importantly, it makes the Japanese public nervous.
Really?
Yeah. This is where we run into a fascinating concept I like to call cognitive friction. Are you looking at the internal polling data over there?
I am. I've got the printouts right in front of me. Listen to this. Takaichi's cabinet currently enjoys a massive approval rating. We're talking 63.8%.
Right, which is incredibly high.
It's huge, and you would naturally think that means the public loves the militarization because the region feels super dangerous and citizens fundamentally want security. But here is the friction. When you ask those exact same citizens about the new weapon export policy, 48.2% oppose exporting weapons. Only about 27% actually support it.
That is exactly the cognitive friction I'm talking about.
I've been trying to puzzle this out all morning. So they love the leadership for making them feel safe, but they hate the actual mechanism, which is selling weapons that the leadership is using to gain that power.
Spot on. And there is a deeply hidden economic risk here that connects right back to our listeners' wallets.
Okay, how so?
The Japanese government is running fast and loose on debt-fueled military spending right now.
Ah, printing money.
Exactly. Printing money to hit that 9 trillion yen budget is causing localized domestic inflation. The yen in the average citizen's pocket is suddenly worth less, which makes their everyday groceries way more expensive.
So they're feeling it at the supermarket.
They are. The public wants to project strength, but they want to keep their hands clean and their costs low. To use your kind of investor analogy, it is like a client demanding double-digit returns on their portfolio, but absolutely insisting on zero volatility.
Which is mathematically impossible.
It's a mathematical and moral impossibility. This moral anxiety within the Japanese electorate is essentially a ticking time bomb for potential policy reversal.
Okay, so Japan is flexing its muscles but dealing with severe internal dissonance. But how are Beijing and Moscow reacting to this? Because they can't just be sitting idly by, watching Japan co-develop stealth fighters and build up a $60 billion defense budget.
They certainly aren't sitting idle. They are reacting by building an airtight, sanction-proof economic fortress.
A fortress.
Yeah, we are looking at the rapid evolution of a Sino-Russian back-to-back alliance. They are aggressively securing mutual financial sovereignty to counter the U.S. and Japan.
I actually saw the energy flow data on this, and it is just wild. China's oil imports from Russia jumped almost 41%, 40.9% just between March and April of this year.
And if you zoom out to the macro level, Russia is now sending over 90% of its total oil exports directly to China and India.
90%.
They have completely rewired global energy flows in just a matter of a few years.
Wait, I need to stop you right here. If the U.S. and Europe have practically locked Russia out of the traditional banking systems, how are they paying for all of this?
Good question.
I read that their bilateral trade in the first quarter alone hit $61 billion. To bypass the SWIFT system, which, for our listeners, is essentially the global messaging network that traditional banks use to move money securely across borders, how do they settle a $61 billion bill?
They get creative.
But they can't just be flying actual pallets of cash back and forth, right?
No, they aren't using cash. You have to look closely at the settlement methods.
Oh my goodness. Wait. The gold for goods trade?
Yes.
I thought that was a typo in the briefing.
Not a typo. Russia's physical gold for goods trade with China has spiked by 400%.
Are you seriously telling me they're literally loading up physical gold bars, putting them on armored trains with security guards, and physically moving them across borders to trade for industrial supplies?
That is exactly what they're doing.
That is medieval. I mean, the logistics of assaying and securing that much physical metal just to buy machine parts has got to be a complete nightmare.
It is an absolute logistical nightmare, and that is exactly the point. Well, on the surface, some people hear gold-backed trade, and they think, wow, that sounds incredibly powerful and sovereign.
It sounds cool, honestly, like pirate treasure.
Right. But from an economic standpoint, I have to strongly warn our listeners, when sovereign nations revert to trading physical gold bars for machinery, it is a glaring red flag.
Because it means the system is broken.
It shows that normal financial liquidity is completely dead. Trust in digital ledgers has evaporated entirely. They're relying on heavy metal because they fundamentally do not trust the digital systems anymore.
It really screams desperation under the guise of strength. And while China and Russia are busy building this gold-backed economic loop to counter the West, Taiwan is caught right in the middle of this massive geopolitical pressure cooker.
Taiwan's reality right now is high stakes in every possible sense of the word.
Let's talk about the military side first. In April, the final batch of those 108 U.S. M1A4T Abrams tanks finally arrived at Taipei port. And Taiwan's defense spending has hit a record high, right? Putting their military budget at $949.5 billion TWD.
Which is about 3.32% of their total GDP. That is a massive commitment to defense.
It really is. But just like you mentioned with Japan's polling, there is a serious cognitive disconnect in the Taiwanese polling data right now, too, isn't there?
Yes, the data there is incredibly revealing. You have that massive defense budget, and it actually enjoys solid support.
Yeah.
Nearly half the public, 49.4%, backs the heavy military spend.
I'll bet that makes sense.
But then this raises a really important question. Support for formal independence has actually slipped.
Slipped? By how much?
Since 2024, support for independence has dropped noticeably by 7.5%, falling down to about 44.3%.
That feels entirely contradictory at first glance. I mean, you are buying heavy armor, taking delivery of advanced U.S. tanks, but you are actively backing away from independence. Why?
Because of the wallet. The people are feeling immense economic pressure.
The inflation, again.
It's exactly. Global inflation, supply chain disruptions, energy costs. It is all wearing the average citizen down.
Yeah.
So they are heavily leaning towards stability.
Yeah.
They want the armor to protect the status quo.
Yeah.
Not to force a risky political change that could completely ruin their economy.
And China absolutely knows this, don't they? Beijing is reading the exact same polling data we are.
They are. Which is why China is executing a highly sophisticated dual strategy.
Right.
They're not just relying on military threats or fighter jet incursions anymore. They're playing a very long, very patient economic game.
Have you looked at the Fujian-Taiwan integration demonstration zone?
I have. It is essentially a strategy of economic absorption, right? But how does it actually work on the ground? Like, what are they actually doing?
It works through irresistible incentives. China is offering Taiwanese tech workers massive tax breaks. They're offering housing subsidies for luxury apartments in Fujian and fast-tracked business licenses.
They are trying to make it so financially appealing for Taiwanese talent to just move across the strait that the political borders eventually just blur away into irrelevance.
So they are executing economic absorption on one side of the strait, literally wooing engineers with tax breaks, while simultaneously over at the United Nations in New York, Beijing is aggressively playing the diplomat, condemning Japan's militarization.
Yes.
It's a dizzying amount of maneuvering.
And let's not forget, all of it is fueled by Russian oil, settled in physical gold.
Man, okay, let's recap this because my head is spinning. We started with Trump dodging a 60-day legal timer using a loophole. Then we moved to Japan's moral anxiety over their $60 billion defense budget. And then we ended up with Russia hauling literal gold bars across the border to bypass SWIFT, all while Taiwan tries to balance Abrams tanks against a desperate desire for everyday economic stability.
It's a lot. But every single one of those geopolitical maneuvers affects the price of your groceries, the cost to heat your home, and the value of your retirement portfolio.
Exactly. So bring it all home for our listeners today. And I want to warmly remind everyone again, our discussion today was purely observational. We really do not criticize any nation, any group, or any policy. Our goal is simply to lay out these objective facts on the table, to explain the mechanisms behind the headlines, and to encourage independent, critical thinking.
Which brings me to a final provocative thought for our listeners to take away today. I really want to bring this right back to your wallet.
Let's hear it.
Geopolitics isn't just something that happens on the evening news while you're waiting for the sports scores. It is the invisible hand choking your supply chain costs. It directly dictates the exchange rates of the currency sitting in your bank. It determines the valuation of those semiconductor stocks you've been sweating over all week.
So true.
Do not just read the headlines. A headline says war terminated. The reality says 60-day legal limit bypassed. You have to look for the friction points in the data.
Like Japan wanting security but hating the business of weapons. Or Taiwan buying heavy tanks but desiring the comfort of stability.
Precisely. Because right there, inside those friction points, inside the contradictions between what people say and what they actually spend their money on, that is where the real risks and the real financial rewards are hiding.
I absolutely love that. Don't just look at the beautiful, distracting auroras in the sky, guys. Look at the fire burning right behind the data. If you enjoyed today's geopolitical journey, please remember to subscribe to Sip and Talk on whatever platform you use. We love having you with us.
Oh, and before we go, I have to give a quick shout out to our good friend Mickey.
Oh, Mickey, what has he gotten himself into this time?
You have to check out his YouTube channel, Mickey to Life. He just uploaded the most hilarious vlog.
Where'd he go?
He traveled all the way to Kiai City in Taiwan. He was supposed to meet up with a Japanese friend for this big cultural exchange trip, but the friend totally flaked on him at the last minute.
Ouch. So he was just stranded alone in Chiai.
Yes. So his grand trip turned into this lonely, solitary gourmet marathon where he just wandered around the city eating bowls and bowls of traditional turkey rice entirely by himself. Just eating turkey rice alone.
It's amazing. I was crying, laughing, watching it. You all need to go watch his misfortune. It will definitely cheer you up if your stock charts are still glaring red.
I will definitely be watching that later today. Well, remember everyone, protect your cognition, manage your risk, and keep questioning the headlines. We will see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Until the next time.